Okay, ready, go.
So y'all really want to hear about my characters and my stories? And then Natalie, Miss Mallon? Well, first, let me tell you my story. I was born in St. Louis, Missouri. I was one of 5 children, but I was the only one to live past the age of 25. When I was 5 years old, my father died, and I was raised by my mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother, all of whom were widows. Growing up after my father's death, I saw my only female friend banished. My grandmother died 3 days before Christmas, and my brother died on Mardi Gras. At the age of 20, I married Oscar Chopin, and by the age of 28, I had 6 of his children. When I was 32, my husband died and left me in a great amount of debt. I tried running the general store, for a year, but financially, I couldn't support my family. At times, I had to flirt with every man that walked into that store. And once, I was even involved in relations with a married farmer. The good old days, right? Then I moved in with my mother, but a year later, she died. I had no one to support me or my family, so I began to write. And you know why I like to write? Because writing is like playing chess. I get to cleverly handle the pieces in my stories and let the plot take the course I intended to take. I finally found something that I was in control of, where I had the freedom to play and do as I please. But why is it in chess that the man always has to win? Why does the queen sacrifice herself for the king? I guess that's just life. The freedom of a woman shut down to the future of a man. Now, before I go on and start analyzing all my characters and stories, I want to make sure y'all know what I'm talking about. Because I'm pretty sure you guys don't all remember or even read them the first time. So I went out and found this new technological invention called a video recorder. And making some 50 new films. So please enjoy.
Technology these days.
He's back. Science and ships going down the drain.
Refresh.
Get locked in. I gotta go.
Hang me high if I saw him sitting there, Natty. I know it's just awkward for you, but I know you'll forgive me. Why, what's the matter?
Don't touch me. Don't even come near me. Do you know what do you mean by coming in here without ringing the house first?
I came with your brother just as I always do. He went upstairs and I came down here looking for you. The explanation is simple enough, and it really ought to satisfy you through this whole misadventure. But regardless, I really hope you can forgive me.
Forgive you? You don't know what you mean. Oh, no, let me pass. It depends on a good deal whether or not I will ever forgive you. Will you let me speak to you a moment or two, Mr. Bronte? Perhaps I should not have even sought this interview, Miss Bronte, but, oh, I've been so very uncomfortable, almost miserable since that little encounter we had the other afternoon, when I thought of how you might have misinterpreted it and believed things. I know it's absurd and called for, to tell you this. It's undignified even, but it makes so much more difference when you think, for me, of what you think of me.
Well, your husband has sent me here to kiss you. I suppose it's natural for a man to feel and act generously on an occasion of this kind. He tells me he doesn't want his marriage to interrupt wholly that pleasant intimacy that has existed between you and me. I don't know what you've been telling him, but apparently he wants me to kiss you. Well now, what you don't know is I didn't tell him so it would have seemed ungrateful. But I can't tell you. I've stopped kissing him. It's dangerous.
Good job, Angelica.
Now,
Now, let's talk about my characters. First, Miss Mallard. Miss Mallard was a common household wife who did all she could for her husband, even though she only loved him sometimes. She was in a marriage with Mr. Mallard, but she wasn't in love with him. What marriage really has to do with love anyways? Miss Mallard seemed to have a very stable house and be doing pretty well off in life. But she was stopped because of that blind persistence, of which men and women believe they have the right to impose upon another. Her freedom had been taken away in the blink of an eye. And she married a man and practically gave herself away to him. When she heard that he was gone, that he had died, something possessed her body and soul. Freedom. She now had the power to do as she pleased. She was the goddess of victory. And she thought that she had won until her husband walked right back through that door. She had died of prophecies, of the joy that kills. She wasn't happy that her husband had returned. That was the cause of her joy. She was too overwhelmed with this newfound freedom that when she saw her husband, he stole away from her once again, and her entire body went with him. In a sense, Miss Mallard is kind of like me. I mean, I thought my husband gave me all the freedom I asked for, and many people saw it that way too. But within the first 8 years of our marriage, I gave him 6 children. How much freedom does a pregnant mother really have? And then he died, which broke the bonds of our marriage, but it also left me with those 6 children. I wasn't ever free after that. My marriage may have no longer existed, but my family was, and I was responsible for them. And my time, my freedom, like the clock around this necklace, was up. And it was foolish for myself, or Miss Mallard, to expect to have everything in this world. And like Natalie, it was a little unreasonable to expect. Now Natalie, she was looking into a stable and secure future for herself. She placed on her red lipstick while she was placing on a face of deception. She made Brantain believe that she truly loved him, although to her, he was rather insignificant, except that he was enormously rich. It wasn't that she was incapable of loving someone, no, because she did love Mr. Harvey, and Mr. Harvey did love her. But he wasn't as well off as she would have liked him to be. After almost losing Brantain his fortune, she put on her sweet smile and made Brantain feel as if she truly cared about him. She made him feel that she loved him, all the way down to the altar. When Mr. Harvey came up to Natalie at the wedding and said that he could have kissed her, Natalie felt like a chess player, but in reality, it was Mr. Harvey who had won this time. He had the queen in his hand, and instead of protecting her and her feelings, he was willing to sacrifice her and her shallowness to save himself, the king. Well, what's little Stephen Natalie left with now? Renting his million. Money makes her happy, and she got it, but she will never have love. Natalie reminded me of myself when I was running that little general store after my husband died. I knew I wouldn't be able to support my family, so I did what I had to do. Learn. So every day, I would place on my red lipstick and smile at all the men coming into my store and hope that they'd give me a little tip if I helped them find the sugar. I mean, I didn't love any of them. I didn't even love that married farmer I was involved with. But it helped out my family. But it wasn't enough. I was still relying upon men to help me out, and like Edna, I needed to get away from those males. Now with Edna, she was one of my more rebellious characters. She was always trying to go against the Creole society that she married into. She thought that she was in love with Leonce, felt as if he was the best suited for her. And at that time, all the other women were so jealous of her and her wonderful husband. But Edna was no mother woman. She began to realize her position in the universe, and like Miss Natalie, her will blazed up, stubborn and resistant. She was following whatever impulse moved her, and she was moving away from Leonce, past Robert, past Alice. And she realized that jumping from man to man would not help her in trying to find her freedom. It made no difference which man it was. It was all about her two children. They were a part of her life, but she would not let them possess her, because she knew they could overpower her, and they sought to drag her soul into slavery. She was their mother, and she's supposed to be there for them. But that's not the life she longed for. The only way she felt that she could actually get this freedom was to walk out to the sea and never return. Edna tried to deceive her men like Natalie, but that didn't happen, and that didn't help her freedom. And this powerful sensation, her flame, began to possess her like Miss Natalie. But her time would end soon. Even if she had hid out in that pigeon house, Leonce would soon come home and take away her freedom once again. I love my children, I do, but they held me back. Always trying to keep me tied to my late husband, because they were also his. My stories, my characters all relate back to my life, and what I wish I could have done. But society shapes people and their expectations. It's just like a chessboard, where the queen can move as far as she wants, but only to protect the king. The only way to win is to keep the man alive and keep his reputation respectable. He may try to fix his wife's wrongdoings by moving 1 or 2 spaces, but he's always willing to sacrifice his queen for his own well-being. So checkmate.